Hey, everybody, in today's episode, it's myself and Benjamin B. All right, listen, the first part of this episode, Ben and I are talking about something I don't think we've ever brought up in the past, which is SoberLink. Now, we brought this up because we recently did a podcast with Amber Hollingsworth from Put the Shovel Down. Chances are you listened to it, but in that episode, we talked about SoberLink and how she's implementing it in her practice, and it's actually pretty fascinating. We then transition into the Big Book study and kind of how that is working for family members and loved ones and people that are in recovery. It's phenomenal. It's going absolutely great. We get into some discussion there. And then we get into a Facebook comment that we received on the Sobriety Network. And that's where the bulk of our conversation is. There's a young gentleman that is struggling with meeting attendance and staying accountable to his sponsor. And Ben and I thought, well, let's talk about this and give some words of encouragement. So I know you're going to love this. Enjoy the show. Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use, and thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us. info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com, and ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message, right, Ben?
Yes, sirree.
So we recently had Amber on the show from Put the Shovel Down. That was pretty cool. What'd you think?
Very knowledgeable. Like I always say, it's for me and for you too, man. With 14 years of sobriety, at this point, we've kind of, I wouldn't say we've heard it all, but pretty much what we're always learning is new ways to communicate it.
Right.
And becoming more effective at communication. And she does an amazing job dumbing things down for guys like me to understand what's going on.
Yeah. No, it was a phenomenal episode. I was super glad that we were able to do that. And so she has a platform called Put the Shovel Down. Great resource for family members, loved ones, and people that are struggling with addiction. And she actually does a lot of online stuff. And massive YouTube channel, 780-some thousand subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely go check that out. That episode would have come out before this one or two before this one. But yeah, all in all, good experience. I was glad to get to connect with her, and she brought something up that I think we can spend a few minutes on. SoberLink.
Yeah.
I've had many conversations with people, and they have often brought up SoberLink or something like it. And more often than not, I was always shying away from it. But let me explain why, and then I want to hear your thoughts. Amber's approach with SoberLink, I think, is the appropriate approach.
Do the listeners know what SoberLink is?
No.
Give them a quick.
SoberLink is basically, it is a breathalyzer that you can carry around with you. It's discreet. It's just a handheld thing. It looks like a breathalyzer. But I think one of the coolest things about it is that it has facial recognition. So you can't just fool it, right? It actually has facial recognition. So when you blow in it, it recognizes that it's you. And there's a platform that you can set it up to where your results will go to somebody or a group of people. And you could structure it in a way. Maybe it goes to your coach or your therapist, which is generally how she sets it up. She wants those results to go to her or whoever it is that person is working with. And it's kind of an accountability piece. But the interesting thing in her perspective on it and the way that she implements it, I think is the appropriate way. She said that I would never want people to use it if they didn't want to use it. She would offer it up as a suggestion, right? So Ben, if you come to me, hey, I'm struggling with alcoholism and I'm working with you for a period of time. Well, hey, Ben, what do you think of this SoberLink? It's a breathalyzer. You can carry it with you. We could set it up to where, you blow in it in the morning, afternoon, and evening. The results can come straight to me. I'm not looking to catch you in anything. It's just another layer of protection and accountability. I'm not looking at this as being a long-term thing, but you got 60 days sober. Could be something of interest. Is that something that you'd be interested in?
I am the way you presented it, Tom.
Yeah. And so I'm in favor of it for that purpose. And where I wasn't in favor of it in the past, in the conversations that I have had, is primarily with family members. It wasn't the person wanting to get sober that was bringing the topic up of SoberLink.
Mm-hmm.
It was oftentimes the parents or the loved ones. I want so and so to be on SoberLink. See the difference? It's less about what you want and needs to be more about what they want. Because if you want SoberLink for your loved one and you force it on them, well, yeah, they may use it, but they're going to try and cheat the system. They're going to try and circumvent it in any possible way. And it's also a control issue. And one of the biggest things that's one of the biggest things that we try and help families recognize is that this is something outside of your control. No matter how much you think you can control it, it's outside of your scope. Go ahead.
Yeah, for me, exactly what you just said. It's all about the application of it. When I first saw the ad for it, I thought to myself, ooh, I don't like that. And I brought it up to Amber. I said, there's a line in the big book that says, now I'm going to butcher it. Paraphrasing, any effort to shield an alcoholic is doomed to fail. In other words, and Amber made it very clear, we're not giving it to families so that they can catch their loved one. Like, ooh, I got you. Because that doesn't work. That causes resentment. That causes anger. But the way that she pitched it, in particular, what she likes to see is that the client, like you said, says, yes, I'd like to use this thing. And it links it to her as a therapist. And she said, your family's not going to handle this. I'm going to help you handle this.
Right.
She's not the family. She's the coach. Which therefore, if somebody drinks or uses, it becomes helpful versus, oh my God, my family's going to catch me, and then the resentment starts again. Leave the family out of it. Kind of like you tell families when they enter Rock Tom, you always say, we're going to have you take a back seat until we invite you in. And I want to make it really clear for anybody that's never heard Tom or I say that before, that we're not pushing you out. On our end, first we want to educate and give the families the knowledge on how to do this properly. And one other point I wanted to make too, I have had clients in the past, it's a pretty normal thing, tell me, I really want the accountability of doing the urine analysis, the drug tests when they come to Rock, for instance. And for someone like me, I'm like, I always tell them, I'm like, hey, look, long term, that's not going to keep you sober, and we need to teach you more than that. If the only thing keeping you sober is, I got a drug test coming, but in the beginning, I'm an advocate for that. If that's something that's going to help you not pick up for a little bit until we can develop better skills to where you don't need to be like, oh, I got a drug test. Because I'll call it what it is. How many of us have stories where we're on probation and we're failing drug tests anyway?
Yeah.
So, but there are clients that do like to be motivated by the fact that they're getting them. So I told Amber, I'm like, you really opened my mind to see it from a different perspective. I didn't know how you were applying it. Now that I know the application, I'm like, oh, I get it now.
It's very client driven,
mm-hmm.
And I think that is the piece that is the most important. And I don't think that it would be as effective if said person is utilizing it out of resentment, right? Oh, I got to blow in this damn thing. Oh, I got to blow in this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when parents and family members and loved ones want to force this on somebody, it's not having this, it's not as useful as it would be if they were like, yeah, I'll do it. I would have done it. I don't think it was around when we got sober.
No.
I doubt it, but
we had AOL.
Yeah, we had dial up. Remember that?
Yeah, that was pretty good, Tom.
That
You
was
kind of
good.
nailed that.
Yeah. So, anyways, highly encourage you to check that episode out. It's with Amber from Put the Shovel Down. What's her last name? Hollingsworth.
Hollingsworth.
Yeah, super nice lady. Great conversation, and hopefully we could do some more work with her in the future. Also, Big Book Study's going great. We just completed week 6. I think Eric finished the second half of There Is a Solution, and so what's the next chapter?
More about alcoholism.
Yeah, so now we'll be going into more about alcoholism, and the response has been phenomenal. Last night was really good. We had a couple family members chime in and speak from a family member's perspective, like how this has really kind of opened their eyes to what their loved one is going through. Alyssa, who's been a long time, or Elise, or Alyssa, she'll know. She's listening. She spoke up, and it was really cool. And you know what? She was open about how right now Al-Anon just really isn't her jam, and I would encourage her to make it more of her jam, right? Maybe add a little bit more sugar to it, make it a little bit more sweeter, try some different styles of jam. But she brought it up, and she was like, this is something that I've been struggling with for a while. And but all in all, it's been a great thing. We got like 225 people have registered for it. And last night there were 22 people. A lot of people are utilizing it for the recordings. So they're registering for it. And then what's cool is you get put right into a portal, like you create a username and a password, and you get all the recordings back to back to back. And so we just completed week 6. If this is something you're interested, obviously, go to realrecoverytalk.com/bigbookstudy and register. You can join at any time, right? And you'll get the recordings. And I did opt to take out the Q&A at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Zoom portion. I personally don't feel comfortable. Like, if you want to engage in this, you should be able to engage in it in and there needs to be some level of privacy, right? So if you're just going to watch the recordings, you're going to get the Big Book Study portion of it. You will just miss the Q&A at the end, because I think that needs to be, kind of kept under wraps.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. To touch on the Al-Anon portion too, there's a book called How Al-Anon Works. But for instance, my mother, who's an Al-Anon member, her sponsor took her through the Alcoholics Anonymous book. And essentially, this is going to be a very watered down generic version the way I'm going to explain it, but just replace the word alcohol with my addict.
Right.
Like, we're powerless over them from the Al-Anon perspective. Like, what's the difference? You're trying to control alcohol, the alcoholic is. You're trying to control the addict, the codependent parent or loved one is.
One thing that she said that was really interesting, and I'm just thinking of this, she said that a lot of the people that were in the meetings that she was going to had somebody in recovery for many years, like 7, 8, 9, 10 years. So she couldn't relate to them because she's like in the storm, right? Her son is still actively drinking. And I just thought that was interesting because it's kind of counterintuitive. Like, those are the types of people that you probably, and if you're listening to this, like, those are the types of people that you really want to surround yourself with. Because I know for myself, when I walked into an AA meeting for the very first time, there's something to be said about kind of migrating towards the people that have long-term sobriety. It doesn't need to be 10 years, even a year, right? Or 6 months, or whatever the case is. Because it's wisdom, right? Those people have been through these experiences. And I imagine that it's parallel in Al-Anon going up to those people. And we didn't dive into detail, but I would be curious to know from her, and maybe I can get the answer to this, like, how engaged are you in this process, right? Are you just going in and sitting and listening? Or when the meeting, because we all know, and this is my belief, the meeting before the meeting and the meeting after the meeting are arguably the most important, in my opinion, because you get to meet people. You get to go and talk with them and have coffee or dinner and like share with them and talk to them about what you're going through. And if they have a son or daughter or a spouse or whomever that has been in recovery 10 years, I guarantee you the experiences that they were having prior to that is very fresh in their mind. You know what I mean? Just because it was 10 years ago, the hell that they went through, they remember it and they can help speak into that. So,
Well, when you say the meeting before the meeting and after the meeting, it's not literally a meeting.
no.
However, there's the importance of, because I see this in AA all the time, in the meetings I go to, you'll notice the people that show up 15, 20 minutes earlier before the meeting starts generally have their life together. The people that walk in 30 seconds before the meeting starts generally don't have their life together.
Yeah.
And those same people that get there early generally stay after and mingle some. The ones that don't are out the door. The other thing that I want to touch on too, you in a way, we're saying to surround yourself with the winners. So I grew up in AA going to big book studies. That was my thing. I loved it, got through it. And then at one point in my sobriety, at about 10 years, I switched to a different home group just for something fresh, man. Like there was more of an open topic, open discussion meeting. And I did that for a couple of years and it kind of lost its, shine for me. To be honest with you, I started missing the good stuff, the big book studies. And I recently started going back to a big book study. The reason that I bring this up, the type of meeting that you choose is also very important as well. You will very, very clearly notice that like for instance, and this is all the big book studies I've ever attended, like the ones that are serious, you show up and it's nothing but winners in the program. They're there to study, to learn, to get the knowledge versus, for instance, the other format for meetings a lot of times is speaker meeting followed by an open discussion where somebody comes in and tells their story, which is great for newcomers. Don't get me wrong. Like you go in there, you hear someone's story, you're like, oh, they're like me. Once you've attended a few of those, I wish that everybody knew to switch themselves to big book studies because you get a really good facilitator like Eric. The one that I've been attending has had multiple facilitators that are just as good, to be straightforward. And you could just tell the vibe in that meeting, or anyone I've done in the past, the valedictorians of the program and the ones that are killing it and their lives are awesome. There's no riffraff, so to speak.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, if we look at the open discussion / speaker meetings, I think they're both very valuable. And I remember going to those more open format, open discussion, right? So say, Ben, you would come up, you would share your story. You probably had 6 months sober or whatever. And I'm there with 30 days. I'm hearing your story and I'm like, wow, Ben's got 6 months clean or sober. This is what he's been through. These are the experiences that he has had. So they're good in that purpose, right? To kind of get people bought into the process, right? To help people understand we're not alone in this. And every now and again, you get the people that raise their hand that, especially old timers, they're notorious for this. They're just like, they want to inflect their thoughts and opinions on everything, right? And so sometimes you get these old timers that purposely seek out these meetings just so they can put themselves up on a pedestal, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. We're all human. But then when you do get into the big book studies, yeah, like that is the meat and potatoes of it. This is where we're going to dive into the book, dissect the book. and hear different thoughts and opinions, because that's the cool thing about the book. It's up for interpretation in a way, right? And everybody kind of has their own little spin on it. If it was all very like one-sided, like, we want to have different takes on it and stuff like that. Your interpretation of a specific line may mean something different for me, and it could benefit you in some way. So these big book studies are very valuable in that sense, but Al-Anon, it's the same exact thing. I could poke holes in meetings in Alcoholics Anonymous just the same as anybody can poke holes in meetings in Al-Anon. But the thing is that we just have to, there's the saying, take what you want and leave the rest. I believe in that.
I spoke at a meeting the other night, and the truth of the matter is, for me, and I shared this, I don't know what made me bring it up, because I usually don't say this, but it's absolutely true. I didn't start to appreciate meetings until I started to understand the big book and the actual program, and actually had some knowledge about what it was really about. Because it went from being generic of, like, say, a speaker meeting where you hear somebody, oh yeah, the problem, I did this much, I did that much, I grew up here, did that, went to jail, these are the consequences, and then I found a higher power and everything's great today. Versus being like in a big book study, you're literally figuring out, okay, how'd this person diagnose themselves? What was it that made them decide? And you get into like the nitty gritty details of it that really matter. And then rather than just saying, I found a higher power and now everything's better, it very slowly goes through that and builds up to it again with the nitty gritty details.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just this generic, like, because there's a lot of, and I was at fault for this in early recovery. I'd hear somebody speak and I'd be like, oh, I found a higher power and everything's great. And I would tell myself, that's BS, but I didn't understand. So it wasn't until somebody took me through the book and I started to grasp what was really in there that I started to be able to connect all the dots.
Yeah. Yep. Well,
it's like trying to sit in algebra without doing kindergarten math.
Well,
what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was never good at math. All right, let's move on. We don't got much time left. We like pulling stuff out of the Sobriety Network. And listen, if you're not a part of the Sobriety Network, I want you to join that. It's on Facebook. Just go type in the Sobriety Network, and it's our Facebook group. It's open to family members, loved ones, people in recovery. If you need to be in recovery and you don't know how, go there, join. Just go to Facebook and type in the Sobriety Network. And what we like to do every now and again is when people have interesting comments, we like to read them and discuss them a little bit. And we won't mention any names, but I'll go ahead and read this, Ben, and then we can dissect it a little bit and wrap this up.
Yeah,
okay?
I pulled it up too here.
I'm so mad at myself, Ben. I'm mad at myself. I'd ended up isolating myself into a corner, and I continue to act like it's normal. I haven't called my sponsor in close to a month, nor have I made it to a physical meeting. Normally, I attend NA on a regular basis, but due to having mandatory overtime at work, over the last couple of months, it's been impossible to attend my home group, let alone any meeting. I also have 2 children under 2 years old, and when I'm not working, my fiance is. Taking them to a meeting would cause a distraction for everyone. Those are my excuses for not attending a meeting lately. I have no excuse for not picking up my phone and calling my sponsor. I guess depression has got the best of me. I'm not too sure exactly where I took this left turn. Now I'm not working overtime, and I find it hard to get myself to a meeting. This Sunday marked 18 months of being clean for me now. I feel like I'm just sitting here waiting for something bad to happen. I don't know. That was it. And I obviously am not going to mention any names, but I'm sure this person listens to the podcast. And so I commented, don't beat yourself up. I like what so-and-so said. We tend to be our own worst critics, but now that you recognize it, it's up to you to do something about it. And also, FYI, you just gave us a podcast topic, so thanks for that. Keep it up. What do you think?
So hopefully none of what I say is taken in bad taste, but if you're looking for a change, the definition of insanity is the inability to see the truth. My sponsor made that very clear to me. So we'll go through this real quick, and I'll just point some stuff out real quick that jumps out to me. And he mentioned this. I haven't called my sponsor in close to a month. I want to kind of jump around. He said he has 18 months, right? I
Yeah.
saw that.
Yep.
Here's my question. He's talking about calling his sponsor. However, there is a line in the big book in particular that says, practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. My question is, sorry if I don't mean to beat you up here, but how do you have 18 months sobriety and you're not taking somebody else through these steps? Sounds to me like step work has not been completed.
Well, I have an answer for that. And this isn't a dig at all. He did say he's an NA. And NA tends to take a long time to go through the steps. And I'm not saying that in any bad taste at all. So all you NAers, don't come at me. That's not what I mean. He very well may not be through the steps yet, but there's no reason to not be through the steps at 18 months. So if you aren't through the steps, you very well should be. And if you're not, it could be a result of you not calling your sponsor. But anyways, I digress. Go ahead.
And that goes back to what we were actually just talking about earlier, where I was saying I'm not going to get much out of meetings when I do go unless I'm starting to get a working knowledge of this thing. But it's not about the meetings. The meetings were an additional sprinkle in there, the fellowship. And the history of 12-step programs talks about that. And we've talked about that on this podcast multiple times, where first came the program and then meetings started popping up because when AA started, there wasn't that many members. There wasn't enough to have meetings nationwide. And then all of a sudden the meetings took over and people started to enjoy the fellowship, going to the meetings. They see their friends, whatever the case is. And they think that the meetings are the actual program, and they're not. Like, it sounds to me, and the reason I'm bringing this up, what I see throughout this whole thing in its entirety is a lot of inner turmoil. That's the stuff that the steps fix. If you take a snapshot of this entire thing, this guy's struggling internally. And it seems to me like step work has not been done. I apologize if it has. I don't know, but if I'm a betting man, I would say. And here's the other thing, too. With the insanity part, not seeing the truth, I'm a very busy man, and I'm not like tooting my own horn here, so to speak, but facts are facts. With 14 years of sobriety, I have always made it a point to go to meetings, always made it a point to be sponsoring someone. I've never gone one time in 14 years without having a sponsee actively doing step work. Not once. That's with having 2 kids, one 15 now, they're different, one's 6, they're different ages. It's really hard logistically. My now ex was actually working opposite schedule from me. She worked weekends when I was off on the weekend. I've experienced all this. My solution to that is get with your loved one and establish a meeting or 2 that you can go to every single week that is scheduled. And you're not going to miss it, because that's doable. If I sit down with my significant other and say, this is what I did. Every Friday night, I'm going to this 8:30 meeting. You got the kids? Perfect. It can be done. It can absolutely be done. Just ask yourself, how many seasons on Netflix have you gotten through in the last? Now there's Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
There's the Big Book study.
Yep.
There's all ways to do this.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you put your efforts, where are you putting your best efforts?
And I get the depression thing. I'm not going to knock the depression. I've been very open. It's something that I struggle with today. I always have my entire life. But at the end of the day, while we might not be responsible for let's say, the cause of our mental health, so to speak. For me, it's just, I believe I was just born this way. It's a chemical imbalance. I might not be responsible for it, but I am responsible for my recovery and my well-being. Like Eric always says, no one's coming to rescue me.
Yeah.
You know, no matter what, I make sure that my feet hit the floor and I get moving. That's the part I'm responsible for. No matter how depressed I am, I do something.
Yep.
Action. Faith without works is dead.
I do think all in all, though, he's in a good spot, right? Got 18 months clean, and this, I don't want to act as if this isn't necessarily a bad thing.
No.
This could be a very good thing that he's going through this process. I'm very open about, there was a good 2-3 year period where I didn't go to meetings, right? I didn't attend one meeting. Now I filled that time in, and I wasn't, I don't, at least I don't think I wasn't depressed. I didn't have, a lot of stuff going on internally. I was okay. But this could be a very pivotal moment for him in his sobriety.
Absolutely. And it doesn't just have to pertain to meeting attendance or not calling your sponsor or not doing steps. And any aspect of life and life changes and having kids and all that stuff, like, the scenario changes, man. How many times have I had to sit back and reevaluate what I'm doing and how I'm doing it? Right now, I can't go to as many meetings as I used to. I make it work. Tom, you just a really good example with what just happened with Hattie being diagnosed with, is that type 1?
Type 1, yeah.
Type 1 diabetes. You adapt. You get on. As dad that you're going to jump on this. I have to do this. I'm going to make it work. Dude, you were on it like Blue Bonnet, bro.
I like that. Yeah.
It's like butter, it melts good.
It's like margarine. Is it real? I don't think it's real.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But point is like, you knew how important that was and you got it done. So you got to put this on your scale. Where does this fall in the importance? And this is where the balancing comes in too. There's no such thing as balance. We've talked about this a million times. I don't think there's that's my opinion. It's constant readjustment. Sometimes my meeting attendance is better than others, and then I go back the other way. Or sometimes I'm falling off on my prayer, and then I go back the other way. This is the importance of taking inventory and constantly readjusting and stepping up where I'm falling short. And then I start falling short in an area that I used to do really good in, and then I step that up, and it's like whack-a-mole. But we're in that game of whack-a-mole. Chuck E. Cheese getting mad tickets and mad prizes.
That's right. I thought of this. Tell me your thoughts on this. And I actually stole this idea from, do you know Ramit Sethi?
No.
He's like a money guy, right? Really cool. Awesome guy. I just listened to a podcast that he did with Pat Flynn, and he was talking about financial dials or something. I don't know. Anyways, this is where I got the idea from. Sobriety in and of itself or recovery is kind of like, I want to break this up to having like recovery dials, right? Like, let's look at this switchboard here. There's a switch on the back that turns it on, right? Now, what does this thing do? It records audio. But there's also dials on here. I can turn up the gain on all the different microphones. I can press these buttons over here to make funny sound effects, which I've never figured out, but it's capable of doing. But if you're talking too loud, I turn your dial down a little bit. If I'm talking too low, I turn my dial up. So if we look from a recovery perspective and we look at the dials that we would have, I think we would have 4 dials. We would have the physical dial, the emotional dial, the spirituality dial, and the mental health dial, right? And then you can have other dials that kind of go out from underneath those. They're always being adjusted continuously. Do I need to add a little bit more in this area and take away a little bit more in this area? Yep. Do I need to turn the physical fitness dial up a little bit? Yep. Do I need to turn down the work dial a little bit? Probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's constantly adjusting with the end goal is to kind of have this like beautiful harmonic type thing, you know? And sometimes you're going to screw it up. And right now, his meeting attendance dial is turned down. His accountability dial is turned down. You got to turn those up a little bit.
And the reality is, too, you do have to sacrifice sometimes in some areas to improve others.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with that if you're thinking that through. You can't just say, oh, screw my family, I'm going to meetings, because that's not good either. Don't get me wrong.
No, yeah.
You know, you can overdo that.
Yeah.
We get sober, we have more responsibilities. Dude, you got 18 months, my man.
Yeah.
There's a lot that comes with that, and I don't want to write that off either. You know, there's nothing that's going to be easy about what we do. And here's the fact of the matter, Tom. I don't think I said this in a while. We get sober, life doesn't get easier.
No.
I'd argue it actually got harder.
Yep.
The difference is now I've got the experience, I've got the tools, I've worked some steps, and I'm able to handle this stuff.
Yeah. Comes with responsibility.
So hopefully you didn't take it like we're beating him up.
No.
But I take this serious, man, because
Yeah.
I want this.
It's all out of love.
I want this dude to rise, man.
Yeah.
And hit us back up in a couple months and be like, bro, I put in the work.
Yeah.
And I had a hella turnaround.
Well, the comments section was really good and supportive, and our boy James chimed in. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Sounds like the pain has gotten great enough to make a change. I'd suggest taking the first step to making a call to your sponsor and then going from there. It couldn't possibly make things worse. So, you know, James. Or James.
Oh, yeah. James P.
Anyways, that was in the Sobriety Network. So again, definitely want people to go there and join. We're close to 700 members. You know what's cool though is like I look at all these Facebook groups and stuff, and some of them have like 50, 60,000 people, you know, but it's like,
do you know any of them?
No.
That's what I mean.
No, yeah.
I mean, know anyone in the group?
It's a very small, intimate Facebook group, you know, and people know each other. Shout out to Russ, you know.
Are we close to like 1,000?
700.
Yeah, I noticed it had gone up a bit.
Yeah, so, you know, we all know everybody in there, and some people, if you haven't interacted, interact. Let us know that you're there. Full transparency, I got to be more active in there, you know, and so do you, Ben.
The thing is I don't know if this is good or bad, Tom, but like this morning, and I told you this earlier, like I saw this comment, and I saw James's response, and I saw a few others, and I was like, you know what? This is what this group is about. They got this.
Yeah. No, it is. But just the same as like we, you know, that group does just as much for us as it does for them.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Because what he said there is real and it's applicable to us today, even though we have 14 years sober. Mm-hmm. Like we fall into that trap too.
Absolutely. I've had a lot that I've had to change recently.
Yeah. Anything else? That was pretty good.
No, I enjoyed that, Tom. It's always nice to spend a Tuesday afternoon with you and
your voice is changing.
I know that's because I care
more
about
intimate.
You.
Yeah,
that's Mike. I care about you.
That's nice.
Tom
Thanks.
Voice.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah. All right, that is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.